The reason it seems like people are their parents, which is psychologically untrue, but seems that way, is because there's so much symmetry. There's so much of the same exposure to the same types of circumstances. There really is a lot of shared programming there, and a lot of what we've talked about in terms of the tribal thinking and the trading, that kind of stuff, the expectations of engagement. So when a person or a child of a parent starts to make different choices, it will become evident at some point that these choices don't feel like the kinds of choices that the person who raised me made, or the people who I used to run with made, right? I used to run with a rough crowd, or whatever the case might be. And that feels very obvious sometimes when you start making those very different choices. Because your brain's working against that programming that says, well, this is how I need to show up with people, this is how I need to engage, or this is how I've engaged, so doing this feels kind of against the grain. And it's neither good nor bad, it's just a different.
Yeah.
Right? It might be easy for people to believe that they only have a certain level of capableness or lovability or validity as a person based on all the messages that they've surrounded themselves with growing up and as children, and then also into adulthood, reinforced by their own choices that they've made. If all those things have been basically the same types of choices, well then, yeah, life is really going to feel kind of ingrained in that respect, until someone decides that they want to start choosing something different. I'm just saying, choose something else, you'll have a different experience, a different reaction from yourself. You'll get to see how that choice kind of compares with how you feel about other choices you've made. All that to say that you are not your parents, you are not the people who raised you. You're always a different person, completely different individual with a different set of personality traits, predispositions, behavioral patterns, although those things could match and mirror the people who you grew up with and hang with.
Right.
And that's okay, but that doesn't mean you're them. And it would be very easy to think that, gosh, I think I've hit my potential because I'm doing what other people, what's always been done,
right,
kind of thing. So you can see that there might be, and kind of really diving into the tribal thinking here, you can see how there could be a lot of familiarity in this respect over here, in making the same types of choices, a lot of safety, right? And then making different choices could be, wow, extremely liberating.
Right.
Extremely, wow, I didn't even know I had this in me kind of thing. While also, at the same time, it could be very uncomfortable, isolating, very radical and different, and feeling unsafe at times, just because it's so different of a choice to what these other choices were.
Yeah.
So, your history is not your parents' history, although you may have shared a lot, and that's okay. But you're always entitled to make different choices and to explore who you are, to see what you're capable of, to see how this might affect you. You might end up liking this and never having experienced it before, and then say, you know what, I want to choose that more.
Yeah.
Because this feels fun. And had I stayed in this other situation, I never would have known this was over here.
Right.
So gosh, that's the spice of life, is just trying those different things out. So I'm kind of giving different scenarios here to show you that while it's normal to have similar upbringing and similar emotional reactions to things and behavior patterns, and the people who brought us up and we spend time with and continue to spend time with, it doesn't necessarily define us.
Right.
We're always allowed to choose. We're always allowed to make different choices. It doesn't say that we're a carbon copy of anybody else. It doesn't say that we are our parents. That's not true unless you want to accept it. That would just be a belief. It's more so the fundamental shared, stay with me now, shared values and beliefs on things that the group values.
Right.
Things like their ideas of what love means. Things like guilt. If they guilt one another in order to stay accountable to one another.
Right.
Expectations. Now, if everybody trades the same way inside of a group, then it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be hunky dory until that's challenged.
Right.
Until someone starts to make a different choice. So you can see when you start making different choices, you get to see what that kind of group dynamic, how it responds.
Right.
And I don't mean any one person. I mean everybody in the group.
Within,
So it's really interesting. It's really interesting to me to see how the whole group think thing works, and how it's okay and it's fun and it's great to be part of a group, and it's familiar and safe and just wonderful. It's okay to be part of it, but it's not very fun to allow yourself to be defined by it.
Right.
Or to think that that's all you are, because that's the only place you've been. But it could be normal to accept that kind of limitation about yourself.
Yeah.
It might be easy to think that this is all I'm going to amount to, because this is what everybody around me has also chosen.
Yeah.
But it's not who you are.
Right.
Who you are is. You've seen those movies about people who started off in meager circumstances and they rise up to greatness, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They weren't born great. They just made different choices and got to experience the effect of those choices, and then they said, okay, this feels kind of interesting, let's make another choice. Okay, so let's check in, see how that feels. Okay, authenticity check, let's take another choice. And they just kind of weave and bob their way through the path.
Yep.
Not knowing where they were going to lead, only knowing that they wanted to make a different choice and to just see how that felt.
Yeah.
It would have been okay to go back to the old thing if this choice didn't feel good.
Yeah.
You know what, that's not comfortable. Let's go back to the group. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's just testing different things out and seeing how they feel, how they work. There's no predestined place that we need to arrive.
Yeah.
It's just trying different things on, and those choices are really what define us. It's not the genetics, that plays a factor, but that's mostly physical health related, maybe.
Yeah.
But certainly not with thinking and beliefs. A lot of beliefs is just borrowed thinking.
Yeah.
And we got to be very careful about that, because that really can keep us in a limited bubble should we choose to just adopt the beliefs of those around us, and that's all.
Yeah.
Now, if you're happy and content there, great, fine, nothing wrong with it. But if you want to explore and kind of find out what you're made of, then yeah, try out some new choices and some new beliefs, and not to reject maybe the traditional ones per se, but to say, you know what, I think that there might be more.
Yeah.
And I want to check this out. And from those different experiences, that's where the real beauty is. That you really get to say, hey, look at everything I've done. And even then, that's still not who you are.
Right.
But wow, look at how much you've allowed yourself to expand, because you've allowed yourself to make more choices. And that is a far cry from I'm my parents.
Right. Right.